In advance of the speech at a university in Florida of the white supremacist Richard Spencer, there were concerns about possible violence. I know that well over $500,000 was spent by the university for security. Would have been great if they were able to spend that on something else, but no, they have to spend it to protect the students from the violence that could erupt from a Nazi's speech. So they did that. He had his speech, we reported on it yesterday. It seems like he didn't really get to say much. It was mostly shouted out. Sorry, buddy, that's what free speech is like. But the concerns about possible violence were not misplaced. I mean, he is of course an integral part of the situation that developed in Charlottesville that resulted in the murder of a protester. Heather Heyer was killed there. And so the concern was that somebody else could possibly lose their life, possibly even more, when you put out a message designed to draw these extreme lunatics to you. And it turns out that those fears were well placed. Let's bring up this picture. You're gonna see 3 individuals, big fans of Richard Spencer there. And turns out that they tried to murder someone after attending his speech. So they were arrested. The arrest report said a silver Jeep containing those 3 men pulled up to a bus stop where protesters were sitting. One of the suspects started yelling "Heil Hitler," in case this story and the narrative, the arc that it's gonna take wasn't obvious enough for you.
Very seldom does anything good follow yelling "Heil Hitler."
Except when Jeffrey Lord got fired.
Okay,
that's a good point. It did lead to him getting fired. But in this particular case, one of the individuals allegedly stepped out of the Jeep with a handgun. The 2 others egged him on to shoot them and kill them, talking about some of the protesters. And thankfully, nobody died because he doesn't know, he apparently has terrible aim. He fired at the protesters and missed, thankfully, then fled as a coward. And thankfully they took down the license plate number of the Jeep and they were able to be found.
By the way, that's amazing because the shots had just been fired. Everybody's crazy and still they scribbled down the license plate.
I don't understand how they did it, but they did it thankfully. And what's so interesting is that when you go to before the speech, it turns out that some of those individuals who tried to murder protesters against Richard Spencer there were quite vocal about what they were looking to get. And there are things that they said don't necessarily line up with their actions. Now, Tyler Tenbrink, the one who actually fired the shot, said, "It appears that the only answer left is violence and nobody wants that." Well, maybe not nobody. It seems like you want that actually. It seems like you brought a gun to this event looking to murder someone. And then one of the other individuals who was egging him on says, "Only people who think we're the violent ones causing violence are people who watch CNN." But then you were the guy shouting to murder the protesters, so that undercuts your message there a little bit. And William Fears went on to say, "We're starting to want to intimidate back. We don't want violence, we don't want harm, but at the end of the day, we're not opposed to defending ourselves." I don't know what defending means to him, but it probably doesn't mean getting out of your Jeep and firing a weapon, a firearm at unarmed protesters.
And I think one thing about that, I think this happened after Charlottesville, and it's certainly evidence here, is that one thing to keep in mind is one of the ways that the white supremacist, white nationalist, and ethno-nationalist movements are recruiting, and one of the reasons they're growing so quickly, is that they're actually coming from these sort of men's rights advocacy spaces online. So that's like Proud Boys and a bunch of other sort of groups like that. One is that they actually have a subarm for them that's sort of programmed they call it a private militia. The name of it is the Fraternal Order of the Alt-Knights. It's like you can't even make fun of them sometimes, but they're being serious. I mean, they believe exactly that violence is the only answer even though nobody wants it. It's one of the hallmarks of their constant refrains.
And they see themselves as the aggrieved party.
That's exactly right. And so in a way, there's sort of this combination of this recruiting pool. And you see these white nationalists, white supremacists, and ethno-nationalists actually coming and going to them, say, oh, well, this is largely the kinds of people that we could pull into our fold. And they're actually coming from what is essentially these young white men communities that are mostly, like you said, aggrieved. I mean, and as evidence of that, the leading social media accounts for white supremacy on Twitter had a 300% increase between the years of 2014 and 2016. Wow. And that's the white genocide community is sort of how they define themselves broadly. And it is a reflection of the landscape. There's a reason why they're turning towards violence. They're actually pre-organized and predisposed to that. Much of what we saw in Charlottesville came from these communities. The fact that there was people there ready for violence, it wasn't just that there was a bunch of nasty white white nationalists, they actually are training for this. That is what this fraternal order does. And just today, the Hilton in Arizona had to cancel a conference from VDARE, which is another leading white nationalist organization. This is the first year that they've ever tried to host a national conference and convening for white supremacists in sort of like literally like a trade association kind of thing, because they are emboldened. And these are not outliers. These are
worried that this would come from Donald Trump. I mean, as you said, it has been building.
Right.
But now they feel like, and you see this, by the way, all these reports come out of a person accosts someone in a convenience store or something, and they shout things like, "This is Trump's America. The world's a different place now." Trump himself said it last week. We're going back to a different time. That's what we warned about. And it looks like a lot of people are very enthusiastic about it. And by the way, I mean, there's been a little bit of reporting of this attempted murder. It seems like it would be picked up a little bit more considering the last big meeting did lead to the murder of a protester. But what I find a little bit odd is that the people on the right, people like Tommy Lauren and the classic liberals who care so much about free speech rights, when a protester is almost gunned down by people who say at least that they're on your side, you may disagree that they're on your side, but they're claiming to be aligned with you. When they try to take the lives of people who are speaking out and protesting, acting politically, why then does your concern for free speech not come up? Why are there no tweets? Why are there no blogs? Or why are there no vlogs, no final thoughts? It's weird that there's suddenly silence from you when your side is attempting to gun down people they disagree with.
We need that bell for the double standard.
We do need
exactly. There's a lot of double standards going around. I think that pretty much for the rest of Trump's term, at the very least, you'd hear a lot of bells going on around the country.
Help us build independent media. Become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.